Hi again. The book we're going to talk about today in the martial arts series covers the history of Jiu-Jitsu in Great Britain, and it's called Bushido, and it's by Simon Keegan. And the part of the book that particularly interested me was the section about Liverpool. Now, the history of the combat arts and sports in Liverpool is very, very rich. In boxing, for example, you've had great champions, Nell Tarleton, John Conte, the Smith brothers, and so on. And of course, in karate, the Red Triangle was the preeminent dojo for many, many years. And Liverpool really was the strongest city for karate during those times. But the history of jiu-jitsu in Liverpool is very, very old, and it is very, very fascinating. And the first instructor really who came was Kozumi, who came over to the UK and came to Liverpool in 1906. He was drawn by an advert for the Kara Ashikaga school, Maryland Street, which turned out actually to be just a mail order front, really, and there was no instructor of that name existed. But he was hired by the people running it, and he became a resident instructor, and he became the founder of judo in the UK and the British Judo Association, and he was the most famous name in that for a long time. And then a chap who had trained with Yuki Otani in London, who Tani was a very, very famous jiu-jitsu instructor. A chap called Jack Britton came down to Liverpool and settled, and he taught for many, many years, and he founded the Alpha Jiu-Jitsu Club in Shield Road. And then a few years later, Master Kawaishi came to Liverpool, and he taught for several years. Now, I've reviewed his book, My Method of Self-Defense, so if you can refer to that, he really was a top instructor, and he wrote a really, really good book. So even back then, 1928, Liverpool was getting quality instruction. Now, I met Jack Britton. I was doing judo, and I was looking for somewhere to learn karate. I'd seen a couple of books on it, and it was fascinating to me, but you couldn't find anything about it. And I was directed to Catherine Street, where Jerry Skyner had his dojo, and he had trained with Kawaishi, but it was never open when I passed, and it wasn't karate anyway. And then somebody directed me to Shield Road to the Alpha Jiu-Jitsu Institute, and I knocked on the door, and because it was his house, Jack Britton was there, and he invited me in, and his dojo was just the front room of a big detached house, which was matted. And he was quite an old chap by then, and looked like he'd been through the wars somewhat, and was very open and talked about jiu-jitsu. I found out he trained the police women at one time and so on, but I was still looking for karate, so I never took it up. So the book has all these stories, which I found really fascinating, and but a lot of the people in it who claim to be masters or instructors, their claims are rather doubtful, and they kind of went to sea and learnt it on, in foreign ports, or learnt it from somebody in Chinatown, Liverpool, or something like this. Now, I had good contacts in Chinatown. My best friend at one time was half Chinese, and he lived in Chinatown. He had a shop in Chinatown, and he was mad about the martial arts, and he couldn't get anything out of the Chinese community. So I very much doubt if anyone else did for many, many years, until really Bruce Lee came along, and then it opened up a lot, and they started teaching quite openly. I'm not sure there was any martial arts training going on even behind closed doors. There may have been, but it certainly wasn't open to outsiders. So it's really quite spurious, some of the claims. And another thing that always struck me is that the biggest jiu-jitsu association in Liverpool, when I was doing judo and so on, was teaching jiu-jitsu. But as soon as karate became popular, they started advertising Kempo karate. Then when Bruce Lee started the boom in the Chinese martial arts, they were teaching Kempo Gung Fu, or Chinese Kempo. So they went with the tide of what was popular. And then when Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became very popular, they reverted to calling it Jiu-Jitsu in their adverts. So that always puzzled me to some extent. And one of the chaps who was quite prominent, I knew him fairly well, and I used to chat to him about his background. I was always eager to talk to people, and he was always very, very vague, and you could never pin him down who he trained with. Whereas the guys in karate or in the judo, if you ask them, they tell you exactly who they train with, where, when, and so on. So I always found that, and there's some strange characters, crooks and fascists and all sorts on the scene. So that was kind of the foundation of the Liverpool side of it. Having said that, and the book does make clear there's some really good instructors, some guys who trained under genuine, in genuine systems, and went through the grades, sweated, and did it the hard way, and gained genuine qualifications. I found it a fascinating read, and it fills a need for the history to be explained, and it did illuminate a lot for me. We did quite a bit on the forum on this topic, and Simon Keegan did contribute a lot, and I'll put a link below this. So Bushido, History of British Jiu-Jitsu, good read.